Hi guys, and welcome to this edition of Phyrefli's Video Digest. As always, thank you very much for watching. One of the things I've always tried to do with the digests is to present a balanced approach to things. Now, you may not necessarily agree with the conclusions that I come to, but I hope that you see that I put some thought into them and at least look at both sides of an issue. Now, it's in that spirit that I put this digest together. After the last digest went out, a YouTube subscriber by the name of Josh Goddard put a comment on that particular digest. And his question was, can I make a digest which shows the things that BF3 does better than the earlier Battlefields? So I thought, challenge accepted. I set myself a target of finding 5 different things that Battlefield 3 could do that is better than the earlier Battlefields. Now, given my rather strong and stringent opinion of Battlefield 3, I thought that might be quite hard, but it wasn't anywhere near as hard as what I expected. In fact, I found 4 of them very quickly. So here's that entire 5. I'd appreciate your comments on this video. I do want to be perfectly clear that this is in the name of balance. It doesn't mean that my opinion of Battlefield 3 has changed whatsoever. But I do have to say that one should give credit where credit is due. And this is part of doing that. So enjoy this digest. And Josh, thank you very much for the idea. So the first thing that I want to mention that Battlefield 3 can do much better than the earlier Battlefields is actually something I mentioned in the last digest, and that's patching. Now, if you joined the franchise in BC2 or BF3, you're used to simply downloading a file through Origin, having it applied to the game, everything's hunky-dory, off you go. That wasn't the case with the earlier Battlefields. Now, I'm going to use Battlefield 2142 as my example because that's the game that I played the most and is by far my favourite Battlefield. The 1.5 patch was a patch which was around for several years, so I'm going to use that as an example. And I also had the Northern Strike X pack or expansion pack for 2142. This is the procedure you had to follow to be able to install them. Number 1, download and install Battlefield 2142. Number 2, download and install the 1.4 patch. Number 3, download and install the Northern Strike pack. Number 4, reinstall the 1.4 patch. Number 5, download and install the 1.4 to 1.5 patch. Keep your fingers crossed, everything works. If it didn't, you were reinstalling again. Now that's the procedure, just to simply install 2142, the latest patch, and the Northern Strike pack. And contrast that with Battlefield 3, which is just simply downloading through Origin and off you go. So that's one example of what Battlefield 3 does better than the earlier Battlefields. Another area where Battlefield 3 is superior to the earlier Battlefield games is in its animation. Now, BF3 uses EA's Ant system, which they were using for some of their sports titles. The DICE team took that system, applied it to Battlefield 3, and have used it very, very effectively. Now, not only are the animations much better than the earlier games, but the way that it seeks from one animation to another is much smoother and nicer to the eye. So this is another area where Battlefield 3 is much more superior to the earlier Battlefield games. In fairness, this next one is a bit of a no-brainer, but I'm putting it in anyway because there is such a massive difference between the earlier games and the current iteration of Battlefield, and that's the graphics. Now, Frostbite 1.5 was used back in Bad Company 2, but it's Frostbite 2 that's used in Battlefield 3, and the graphics and the destruction are absolutely incredible. Now, obviously a lot of people there are sat thinking, hold on a minute, graphics don't make gameplay, and that's correct, they don't. But I am looking at specific areas where Battlefield 3 is better than the earlier Battlefields. And you cannot deny that the Battlefield 3 graphics are vastly superior to the earlier games. Now, initially when this next feature was announced, my impression was, whoop-de-doo, what the heck do we need that for? But Battlelog is something that's grown on me very, very much over the months. When I first got into the alpha, I started playing around with Battlelog and I started to appreciate its good bits. Battlelog itself has grown very much since then through the beta when the game's been released and the various features that they've added since then. Now there's a number of advantages that come with Battlelog. For example, part of the program, which historically would have been in with the game, is now outside the game. Now it's a negative in terms of you can't access it from within the game, but it's a positive in terms of if you want to patch something, for example the server filter or the server browser, you're not having to patch the game itself to do it. So that is one advantage. Now it also should be noted that I'm not including the forums in this. It is, and I'm choosing my words pretty diplomatically when I say this, it's challenging to find a decent discussion on the Battlelog forums. And I very much blame DICE for that. Back in the alpha, the tone of those forums was set, and it's never been rescinded since then. However, that's user generated content, and that doesn't take away from the fact that Battlelog itself is, in my opinion, a very good tool and a good step forward. It has grown on me over the months and is something which I think DICE have actually done very well. Now the last thing on the list of 5 is this one. I was able to come up with the earlier 4 fairly quickly, they're pretty obvious. But I was struggling up until a couple of hours ago to come up with number 5. And then it hit me. What is the one thing that Battlefield 3 above all else has done better than the earlier games? Hype. You got it, hype. The hype and the marketing behind BF3 was, and still is to be honest with you, absolutely incredible. There was what, $200 million spent on advertising for the game, and all the hype through the alpha and the beta when the game came out. In fact, it started a year before the game came out because we had the beta access through Medal of Honor in 2010. In fact, it seems to be yesterday that beta access for Battlefield 4 has been released, or the information has been released on the US version of Origin if you buy Medal of Honor Warfighter. So it seems as if DICE EA are starting to use the same kind of methodology they used earlier to get people into Battlefield 4. Now, personally, that's not something I'm falling for, and I don't think a lot of other people are. But if you've not seen it, on the US version of Origin, you can now see if you purchase Warfighter, you'll get guaranteed beta access to Battlefield 4. And that's an example of how DICE are using marketing and hype to sell their games. Now the hype and the marketing behind Battlefield 3, as I've said, was absolutely enormous. And whether you agree with what the final product is or whether you disagree with what the final product is, you can't deny the simple fact that the marketing and the hype that they put together for it were pretty darn incredible. So those are the 5 examples of where Battlefield 3 is, in my opinion, superior to the earlier Battlefields. Now I just want to reiterate, this isn't to say that my opinion of Battlefield 3 has suddenly changed overnight, it hasn't. However, I am a firm believer in credit where credit is due. The other thing as well is that the first 4 examples within that list of 5, patching, animation, graphics and Battlelog, are all technical items, they're not creative or gameplay related items. The marketing and the hype is very creative, but that's purely a marketing department, that's not really tied into the game itself. Now, KNT released an interview a little while ago where he lambasted all the other developers around for their lack of technical progress. So it's clear, I think, that DICE are very happy and very pleased with the technical progress of BF3, and let's be honest, it probably should be. But technical progress doesn't make a game. There have to be other enhancements, progress in other areas. Now, I've done enough digests on that for you to know my opinion. But I just wanted to, like I said, just wanted to put together 5 different areas where Battlefield 3 is superior to the games, and if I'm being completely honest, the challenge that Josh threw down was simply too good to miss up. So, well, that's the digest for this week. I hope, even though it's a bit unusual, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope perhaps it's given you a little bit of thought. If you enjoyed the digest, please like this video, and if you really enjoyed the digest, please subscribe to my channel. As always, thank you very much for watching. Enjoy your gaming. Take care.